Right, Shalom. All praises to Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawashi, bahasham, Kudash. They were honored to the apostles and elders, a great millstone that rule well, laboring the word and doctrine, Shalom and in peace. May that be into the elect of the nation of Israel. So this is just a quick hit. A thought that came to my mind is Jake. A lot of Jake in the world, specifically in the streets, on the grimy spectrum, will use the word pagan, Pagan, as an insult or as a pejorative term, as it says here. And it's very interesting because obviously the word pagan, and we'll go into it. We'll just read it here first. It says, what does pagan mean in roadman slang? It says pagan, plural pagans, and the spelling's a bit divergent to what you would expect. The usual one is Pagan. But Jake puts a bit of style and sauce up in it. It says an untrustworthy person, a person who deliberately acts against one's own interests. And again, this is in the street context. Now, what does pagan actually mean? In terms of etymological and colloquial use, excuse me. So now you look up the word pagan on here. Pagan, it says pagan. So pagan, c. 1400, perhaps mid 14th century, person of non-Christian or non-Jewish faith. Now that's very interesting because we as a people are the Israelites. We are the Hebrew Israelites, specifically in the UK, a lot of Benjamin, right? A lot of the southern kingdom more so. But you've got a lot of allegedly Elam, which probably end up being Jake when you check their line, right? But this used of a person of non-Christian or non-Jewish faith, right? So non-Christians are someone that believes in the Messiah. We believe in the Messiah, right? The one the world calls Jesus Christ. We call him Yahawashi. Yahawashi being the true Hebrew way to pronounce that name. And Hamashiach, Ha, being a prefix meaning the, Mashiach meaning anointed, or anointed. We'll leave it as that. It means savior. Okay, it means anointed. So you get the term Christ, Christos, that's the Greek term for it. Anyway, so it says, from late Latin, paganus, pagan, in classical Latin, villager, rustic, civilian, non-combatant, of the country of a village. So really, that's what it means. It says pagus, country, people, province, rural district. But it was always used, against the other people, of these other villages, in so-called Christian culture or Christian society. So it says the religious sense, often said in 19th century, to derive from conservative rural adherence to the old gods after Christianization of Roman towns and cities. But the Latin word in this sense predates that period in church history, and is more likely derived from the use of paganos in Roman military jargon for civilian incompetent soldier, which Christians picked up with the military imagery of the early church, such as militaris, soldier of the anointed. So there you see it, right? So that is the the etymological, definition of it. Whereas Jake, there's an idolater, but there's something in that. There's something in that. Why would he use the word pagan? Because really Jake, in his heart of hearts, knows it's wrong to be an adulterer, a sorcerer, okay, whatever else he's on, a murderer, right? But still, in his lexicon, is letting him out, it's exposing him, right? Because he knows he shouldn't be an idolater. He's a pagan. Jake is a pagan, right? Jake is like unto these people from these other towns, villages, putting in the context of us in Jerusalem. Obviously, we're scattered everywhere now, but the works of them other people, them people that are not yet returned to Hamashiach, right? That's Jacob. Romans 2:14. For when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these have not the law, and are a law unto themselves. I added in an and there. It says, having not the law, are a law unto themselves, which shew the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the meanwhile accusing, or else excusing one another. Okay, so Jake doesn't tend to eat bloody meat, right? It says in the scriptures, the life is in the blood, right? We're not meant to eat blood from meat, or blood anywhere, for that matter. Because you do have certain, I think what do you call it? Something pudding, what do you call that, man? Black pudding. Black pudding is a Scottish meal where it's literally coagulated blood, if I'm saying that word correctly. Basically, an animal's blood, and they boil it up or cook it up in a manner, and that's meant to be a delicacy, or that's meant to be something of high esteem, of value. That's disgusting. Okay. Even when you're preparing meat, you're meant to get rid of as much blood as possible. Right? We're not meant to eat blood. And Jake doesn't do that. Jake won't have his steak medium rare. You won't see a Negro Liver King, right? And if you do, that's probably a tear. Because Jake knows that, right? Jake knows not to commit adultery. Right? Jake knows that. Jake knows that it's a shame for a woman to go back against her man. Turn her back on a man, should I rather say. And sleep with another man. That's why in his evil songs, it's I fucked your bitch. They push that spirit out heavy. Because that's a thing, that's a grave sin. Right? And that's a shame unto a man. So Jake knows that. A lot of Jakes know to keep a beard on their face. Right? All these things are contained in the law. Adultery is worthy of death. You shouldn't eat blood in meat. That's in the law. Knows to keep a beard. That's in the law. All Jakes, even the grimiest Jakes you could imagine, will have something to do with worshipping, quote unquote, God. They'll all say that. I prayed to God. I was in prison. I prayed to God. I know I shouldn't be doing this. He'll say stuff like that in his song. And look here, this is the same Jakes. Right, Acts 17 and verse 23 says, "For as I passed by and behold your devotions, I found an altar with this inscription, to the unknown God, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship, him declare I unto you." And when we're on the streets, we're telling Jake, we come across Jake, I love God, I love this, I love that. Back when I used to teach him, where there was a heavy concentration of Jakes, that's what you'd hear every 5 minutes. "Well done, brother. Yeah, I love God. Yeah, it's great." And you're all right. Do you have 5 minutes for the Bible, for the God you allegedly love? It's nothing. Crickets. Right? They don't want to hear it. Or it's, yeah, I do. And then you start going into it, tell them about the law, tell them it's the Sabbath day, tell them, whatever you're telling them. Most of them don't want to hear it, man. "Yeah, don't worry. I'll go home and pray. See if I find this now. Proverbs 28 and 9. "He that turneth away his ear from hearing the law, even his prayers shall be abomination." And a lot of us, you fucking Benjamites, a lot of you, right, you don't want to hear the law at all. You go on like the law is wicked. Right? You will bun out funny man all day, but you can't keep a beard on your face. You'll keep a clean razor by your bedside, in your bathroom, to make sure you get that fine, crispy line up. But Jake really knows he's meant to have that beard. There's an increasing amount of Jakes that are, growing out their beard, whether they be into Islam or whether it be fashion or whatever. But a lot of them, love massa too much, right? And there's not really a good level of love for massa. Meaning master, the slave master. So it's a two-way street. A lot of Jakes are waking up. A lot of Jakes are, becoming distancing themselves further and further from the Lord. Recently, I had a testimony. Recently, my auntie sent me something, a long YouTube video about how the so-called black men are the Hebrew Israelites. And I was working one long shift, but that pushed me through it. I was like, yeah. Maybe she'll get it completely, maybe not. And, I've mentioned things here and there, but more time, I don't bring that around, and start preaching to my family. I used to, when I was a lot younger in the faith, but I realized, you're not really meant to do that. You're meant to do that at camp. If someone has a sincere question, of course, answer it. But, you do what you do. Your walk and how you're operating should be a light to even open them conversations. "Oh, you don't eat pork, why is that?" That might lead to a conversation. You don't need to go into camp mode and start, doing too much. Let's see if I can find. Get that one. This isn't what I was looking for, but we'll use it. Psalm 118 and verse 10 says, all nations compass me about, but in the name of Yahawah will I destroy them. And ultimately through the Spirit, through the preaching of this gospel, right, we'll bring the fire upon the world, just as Noah brought in the flood upon the ungodly. Lord willing, if it be our lot, and we are prophets, if we are men of the Lord, we will be able to bring the fire, the wrath of the indignation of the Lord upon these other peoples, even some of our own people, because they want to be like unto these other nations. But all nations have historically been adverse enemies to us. That's why you have the idea of a pagan, or really the correct term would be heathen. Right, Matthew 18 and verse 15, and this just nations, heathen. You can use the term pagan. Really, it just means that outdoors or outside, of another thing. But the intent when it's said, it means someone of another belief system, truly, right? A heathen. And when you go deeper into that, they'll say in a religious context, heathen means a non-believer. Really, what does it mean? It means another nation, right? Not just of a belief system. That's the use of it. But if you go into the word, into the Hebrew, it means another nation, right? Because all these nations had their gods. They had their belief systems. Before E came in and tried to make it all one, everyone had their own culture. Everyone had their own religion, if you like. Psalm 96 and 5, for all the gods of the nations are idols, but Yahawah made the heavens. Right, so all the gods of the pagans, the heathens, these other nations, they're idols, but the Lord made the heavens. Right, so who's our God? Matthew 18 and 15 through 17. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. Right, now you're going to check the next verse. And if you neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if you neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as an heathen man and a publican. So you can see that the Israelites were never buddy with the heathen, right? These other nations. Now the term heathen also goes into the term Gentile, right? When you check it in the Greek, it would be ethnos. So because we're reading in the so-called New Testament, what we've got with the blue letter, that goes back to the Greek text, right? Which we believe, of course, came from the Hebrew, a lot of them. Well, Apostle Paul, remember, he was writing to Gentiles. So some of them that, Greek was, they didn't understand Hebrew. So some of them were actually penned in Greek. But you read that, it's the word ethnos for heathen or Gentile. And if you go into the Hebrew, it's the word goya, right? Or goyam, plural. They'll say goy or goyim in the modern Hebrew. But so it means nation, right? So if your brother sins against you, you go tell him. If he's not hearing you, all right, you bring some brothers in. You go, right, declare this matter. Judge between us who's wrong, who's right. And let's say, right, now he's like, nah, man, I'm not hearing any. He's not hearing you. He's not hearing, 2 other brothers. Yeah, 1 or 2 other brothers. And then if he's not hearing them, you bring the whole congregation. And if you don't want to hear them, right, you're a heathen, man. Right, you're another nation. You're not with us. And that shows there was always a separation. So when plantation Christians want to talk about a reconciliation and all this, well, who was ever reconciled? Who was ever together? Because these other nations weren't with us. Even Yahawashi said it, let him be unto thee as a heathen man. And that proves Yahawashi wasn't trying to bring the whole nation together. Right? He came not to, came not to send peace but a sword. Right? And a sword divides. A sword divides. Yahawashi came with a divisive doctrine. That is his intention. Right? To separate them that are serving the Lord, and them that are like unto the heathen. Okay, so I'll leave it there. On to the next video, Lord willing. Shalom.